That's true. Actually, Bengali is a very melodious language that I have come to know from others also. That when you speak it, it seems that you are singing. So it's true. No, it's really. And Bengali is a very wavy language, so even though there are ups and downs, when we speak, we don't speak straight. That is the point. But anyway, so thank you, Carmen. But just we have heard a lot of things about Amita Bhose. I'm not saying a lot of things, but at least we didn't know about her, and now at least now we have some ideas about her. Few, maybe very little ideas, but we have some ideas about the cultural bridge between India and Romania, what Didi made last century. And so far we know that there is a long cultural bridge between India and Romania for long. So can you please speak something on that? That is how the Indian culture influence. There was an influence of Indian culture on Eminescu. So how did that influence, or how did the Indian culture influence Romanian literature and the culture? I won't say culture, Romanian literature, stories, etc. in the older times. Can you speak a few words on that?
Yeah, yeah, I can speak, but I must say that I'm not an ethnologist or a specialist. So what I say now is
What
there are
do you know
Didi's,
that is, yes.
I know a little bit. There are Didi's studies, from Didi's studies, because she studied all her life this. We have built a cultural relation after the independence. That's
That
clear.
is the political.
The political. But also we have in Indian. Our country, India and Romania, didn't have any relation, directly relation. That's we didn't know. If we in the past we have some relation, direct
No,
relation.
I don't think direct relation was there, but through the storytellers.
But we have from century we have the same stories in the folklore, in our folklore, and we have. I think it's better to be exactly. To read what Didi read what Didi wrote. Now it's clear that Eminescu was the most prominent torchbearer of Indian culture, but it's not the first. The first Romanian historian, Demeter Cantemir, and she lived in 17th century. It was a specialist in Islamic culture and read Humayun Namek, a Turkish version of the Panchatantra, and he considered it as one of the most precious gems of the world literature. And the structure of his literary masterpiece, the hieroglyphic history, is modeled after the Panchatantra. And one of the first linguists of Romania, Hasdeu, who lived in the century, 19th century, published a series of informative articles of Sanskrit language and literature in his journal Traian's Column. And there were four other Sanskrit scholars contemporary with him, and one of them, who was colleague with Eminescu's of Vienna when he studied Sanskrit, was the first professor of Sanskrit in Bucharest University. That was at the end of the 19th century. We have the first translation of Shakuntala, but not from Sanskrit. It was from German, and it was translated by one of most admired poet, George Koshbuk. And he also translate not only also from German the first text from Indian literature on anthology of Sanskrit poems. It was at the end of the 19th century. And we also have a lot of specialized writers who were involved in um, translate Indian literature, but they translate from English and the language. Yeah.
Didi translated all the Tagore for the first time in Romanian directly from Bengali, isn't it? So can we have a poem, have a translation of Tagore by Didi?
We can try.
We can try. Should I read the Bengali version first, or do you like to read the Romanian translation first?
I think it's better to read in Bengali.
Read in Bengali
first.
It is one of my favorite poems. I mean, yes. So it is from Koriyo Komal. মরিতে চাহি না আমি সুন্দর ভুবনে, মানবের মাঝে আমি বাঁচিবারে চাই, এই সূর্য করে, এই পুষ্পিত কাননে, জীবন্ত হৃদয় মাঝে যদি স্থান পাই। ধরায় প্রাণের খেলা চিরতরঙ্গিত, বিরহ মিলন কত হাসি অশ্রুময়, মানবের দুঃখে সুখে গাঁথিয়া সঙ্গীত, যদি গো রচিতে পারি অমর আলয়। তা যদি না পারি তবে বাঁচি যতকাল, তোমাদেরই মাঝখানে লোভী যেন ঠাঁই, তোমরা তুলিবে বলে সকাল বিকাল, নব নব সঙ্গীতের কুসুম ফোটাই। হাসি মুখে নিও ফুল, তারপরে হায়, ফেলে দিও ফুল যদি সে ফুল শুকায়। So now we will go for the Romanian translation. This is the translation directly from the original work.
In Romanian, the title is In vieții. Departe de mine moartea în aceste frumuseți ale lumii. Printre oameni vreau să trăiesc, să-mi găsesc locul în inimile vii, în poierile în floare, sub luciul solar. Viața pulsează etern pe pământ, din bucuria întâlnirii se ivesc surâsul și lacrima dorului. Nemuritor m-aș vrea, cântând imnuri de desfătare și omenească tristețe. De n-am să izbutesc, când sunt viu, caut un loc printre voi, semeni, să isc flori noi în ritmuri alese, pe roa zorilor, ori în amurguri să le culegeți. Luați-le cu surâsul pe buze, aruncați-le când se vor veșteji.
Thank you. We could get the flow of the language, and Romanian, at least like English, it is not very straight. English is a very, flow-wise, English is a very straight language, but Romanian is more feminine or more wavy than English. I think maybe not as melodious as Bengali, but it is also a melodious language. So, Carmen, we had one from Tagore. Can we have one from Eminescu? This is this poem that what we had, Morite Jahina Ami Sundar Bhubane. That is one of the poems. I think Didi has made a remark or has made a note on that in her book. So, can you please tell us what was that? It is really one of the very good poems and one of the most powerful poems of Tagore. I mean, which he wrote in his early age. So it is in Koriyo Komal, actually, he said, Tagore used to say that it is the book with which his journey with the poetry actually begins. Please read those.
Yeah, Didi note for us, for Romanian readers, that this poem, it's like a quintessence of her mind, his mind, like this. It's a synthesis, a quintessence of his truth, his mind.
A synthesis of his thought
like
and
this.
his mind.
Yeah.
So can we have one from Eminescu? This is about a story. Here, Eminescu was highly influenced by the folklores of Romania and Europe as in general. So, and in some of his poems, at least I read very few poems, obviously in translations. There is an influence and there is a story of the local folk tales or several folk tales are mixed together in a poem. So can we the next poem we can have from that where we can have a story. The can you just can we go through that one that Lucia Farul? Can you?
I think you changed something in.
Oh
yeah, you changed something.
no, that was
So.
Just please speak few words on Eminescu's influence of different folklores on Eminescu and the Lucia Farul.
Yeah, what is very strange is that our Romanian critics, so found in Eminescu's poetry, folklore influence. But Didi wrote that for an Indian, for an Indianist, reading Eminescu's poetry, he found Indian influence. Yeah, and I think that maybe both they are true because and Tagore and Eminescu they in their poetry they were very attracted by folklore poetry and but it's more than that because if you read Eminescu's poetry, you think that it's a nature poet, but it's not like the European poets. Of course, they describe nature, but they are very distant from the nature. But Eminescu, like Tagore, it was involved in this nature, and it's very close of nature. And sometimes when you read Eminescu, and you read Tagore, but in Didi's translation, not from English, European language, translating in Romanian, you don't know if you read Eminescu or Tagore. If you don't know the poem, you can be you can know what it. And Indian influence is we can find in cosmology because he was very interested in how the world is created, and you find this in his poetry, but also he involved some Indian, so he involved the hymn of creation in one of his poetry, Epistle 1. So if you read that it's so deeply involved and so by his own mind that it took several decades for the specialist to find the source, the hymn of creation. You didn't recognize. So it's not something who come from outside. It's from deeply soul. It's like he recognized in Indian poetry, and he feel because he was very interested in all, and he studied Indian philosophy and Sanskrit in 1970 to the end and by 19th century. So when he was 20, 20 years. She was a student at Vienna, and she attained the course of Weber, who was the most important to Berlin Indologist. And the critic asked why he learned Sanskrit. And the answer is because he wants to read the original text and because he wants to be more involved. That's why.
Can you please read Shuktara now? That Lucia family.
Lucia, the Evening Star.
Evening Star, yes.
Two sentences.
It is a very long poem, so we will read we will read a portion of it.
Luceafărul. A fost odată ca povești, a fost ca niciodată, din rude mari împărătești, o prea frumoasă fată. Și era una la părinți, și mândră în toate cele, cum e fecioara între sfinți și luna între stele. Din umbra falnicelor bolți, ia pasul și îndreaptă, lângă fereastră, unde în colț, luceafărul așteaptă. Privea în zare cum pe mări, răsare și străluce, pe mișcătoarele cărări, corăbii negre duce. Îl vede azi, îl vede mâini, astfel dorința-i gata, el iar, privind de săptămâni, îi cade dragă fata.
Actually, Lucia Farvel is one of the most famous poems by Eminescu. Now we will go to the Bengali translation, but you just forget the translation. It has become an original poem, an original work. It is so fluent. Carmen was telling that it becomes a different poem and it doesn't seem to be a translation. Actually, we were discussing a few days ago with one of my colleagues. I was discussing, I shared the poems, and we were discussing that these poems seem to be very original works, not to be translations. They are so natural, the flow is so natural. ছিল এক দেশে রাজপালায় এক সুন্দরী অনুপমা, দোসর বিহীনা চন্দ্রমা সম রূপেতে তিলোত্তমা, প্রতি সন্ধ্যায় গবাক্ষ পথে নেহারিত সুন্দরী, আকাশের কোলে শুকতারা যেন আছে প্রতীক্ষা করি, দিগন্তে তার রশ্মি ছড়ায়, সমুদ্রে ভাসে আলো, দেখে দেখে তারে বাতায়ন হতে সুন্দরী বাসে ভালো। রাজার কুমারী মুগ্ধ নয়নে চেয়ে দেখে তারকারে, সমস্ত মন বাসনা বিকল, গভীর প্রণয় ভারে। রাজকন্যার বিধুর বেদনা তারার বক্ষে লাগে, নব নব রাতে নব নব রূপে দীপ্তি তাহার জাগে। পায়ে পায়ে তাই শুকতারা এসে নামে তার বাতায়নে, শীতল তাহার কোমল রশ্মি কেঁপে উঠে দর্পণে। সুখে ঘুমো ঘরে নিঃশ্বাস ফেলে সুন্দরী ওঠে বলে, কোথায় আমার রজনীর প্রিয়, মোর কাছে এসো চলে। আলোক সরণি বেয়ে নেমে এসো সুন্দর শুকতারা, এসো মোর প্রাণে ঢালো এ জীবনে তোমার আলোক ধারা। It is a long story actually. It is a folklore, so you will not get the story from the first stanza, but definitely only the first stanza is a poem. It gives the flavor of a poem. It can be a complete poem. We get a complete poem from the first stanza. So if we stop here, that doesn't matter the impact of the poem. We may not know the story, but we can get the flavor of the story. And we know that Carmen has discussed that Eminescu was highly influenced by Tagore, and Eminescu was highly influenced by Indian philosophy. and he studied Sanskrit. He learned Sanskrit and studied the original works in Sanskrit. He translated Sanskrit verses and plays from the original works to Romanian. So Carmen, and if we look at his poems, at Eminescu's poems, we will find that yes, it is very imbibed with nature, very much imbibed with nature, and he is a poet of love, of nature, and also in some poems we find deep philosophy. But even we don't go through that. If we just read it, we can get a very fine picture of the nature of the rural life, and he wrote about our everyday story, the love, etc. So, Carmen, can we have one translation again from Tagore in Romanian, and after that we will have a poem from Eminescu on that.
What is so? This used to say
It's a very short.
that we know about. We can talk about Eminescu, but only if you know we know something about Eminescu. To ours in schools, Eminescu studied only with two poems, and the students asked what, or the teachers said Eminescu was the genius of literature, and they asked, but what is so genius in this? Because in his poetry we didn't find any genius, because there are only two poems studies at the schools. School, and then one about love, another about nature, and the answer is, yeah. Now you don't consider Eminescu a genius because you know only two poems, but to understand Eminescu you must know philosophy, and not only Indian philosophy, because you can't understand Eminescu at the medium level, only a high level, because he was so deeply involved in all in universality, and if you are you can say, yeah, I like how it sounds and I like the poetry, but to understand what is happened there, you must be involved in philosophy, and to read to to read very much and to want to know very much. But I want to say that in Romania, Eminescu is not very much loved, and I return to you to the Didi's translation. They are so sensitive, yeah, and they are and we know that one critic said that in Tagore's translation, the most difficult is Tagore is himself, because when he translates in English, he modify a lot, because English is not such a nice language, and so he modify a lot. But did he translate directly from Bengali? So we have, that's why we have some, and she was a writer, and he doctor in Eminescu, she know very well Romanian, so that's why we have so this beautiful translation. And when they say me, we don't like Eminescu, I say, okay, it's your, I can understand, but let me read to you one poem of Tagore, because they say we don't like Eminescu, but we love Tagore. Okay, so yeah, I will read to you a poem of Tagore, and I read something, and they say, oh, you see, it's very beautiful, it's Tagore, it's very beautiful. And I replied, yeah, you are right, but now you hear Eminescu's poem. Yeah, So they didn't know, if they didn't know it's a Eminescu, they say it's very nice. Yeah. You hear an Eminescu's poem. Yeah. So now it's...
Should we go to that one or should we go to
Sarah Pedal.
Smita? We can go to Sarapetal. Before that, so we will have a translation from Tagore and then we will go to Eminescu.
Soarele din prima zi. Soarele din prima zi pusese întrebare. Cine ești? Răspunsul nu i s-a dat. Au trecut ani după ani. Ultimul soare al zilei rosti ultima întrebare pe țărmul mării de apus. Cine ești? Răspunsul nu l-a găsit.
প্রেম এসেছিল নিঃশব্দ চরণে, এটা গান হিসেবেই আমরা শুনেছি। ছোট্ট কবিতা, আমি কবিতা হিসেবে পড়লে তাই স্বপ্ন মনে হলো তারে, দিনই তারে আসন। বিদায় নিল যবে, শব্দ পেয়ে গেল ধেয়ে, সে তখন স্বপ্ন কায়াবিহীন, নিশীথ তিমিরে বিলীন, দূরপথে দীপ শিখা, রক্তিম মরিচিকা। And now we have one poem from Eminescu and its translation. And it's a beautiful poem that is about nature, and apparently it is about nature. The evening is setting on and it is like that. So,
Sarah Pedal. Seara pe deal. Seara pe deal, buciumul sună cu jale, turmele urc, stelele scapă în cale, apele plâng, clar izvorând în fântâne. Sub un salcâm, dragă, tu mă aștepți tu pe mine. Luna pe cer trece așa sfântă și clară, ochii tăi mari caută frunza cea rară. Stelele nasc umezi pe bolta senină, pieptul de dor, fruntea de gânduri ți-e plină. Noii curg, razelor șirul despică, ștreșine vechi casele în lună ridică. Scârție în vânt cumpăna de la fântână, valea în fum, fluiere, marmură, murmură în stână. Și osteniți oameni cu coasa în spinare din de la câmp, toaca răsună mai tare, clopotul vechi umple cu glasul lui Sara, sufletul meu arde în iubire ca para. Ah, în curând satul în valea munțește, ah, în curând pasul spre tine grăbește. Lângă salcând stau noi noaptea întreagă, ore întregi, spuneți voi, cât îmi ești de dragă. Ne vom răzina capetele unul de altul și surâzând vom adormi sub înaltul vechiul salcâm. Astfel de noapte bogată, cine pe ea n-a dat viața lui toată?
The Bengali version. সন্ধ্যা হলো, একটি দুটি ফুটছে তারা আকাশ মাঝে, গাভীরাধায় গোষ্ঠপানে রাখাল ছেলের শিঙা বাজে। ঝর্ণাধারার উৎস মুখে জলের রোদন আকুল করে, সালকি মেরি দলায় প্রিয়ে দাঁড়িয়ে থেকো আমার তরে। পাতার ঘন জাফরি দিয়ে দীঘল চোখের দৃষ্টিহানি, দেখো ক্ষণিক আকাশ পড়ে ভাসছে চাঁদের তরিখানি। ঝরিয়ে দিয়ে হিমের কণা মেঘ ভেসে যায় ধীরে ধীরে, উপত্যকায় নামলো ছায়া, চাঁদ জাগে ওই গিরির শিরে। কুয়োর থেকে তুলছে কে জল, আওয়াজ তাহার আসছে ভাসি, পাহাড় চূড়ার গোষ্ঠ গৃহে রাখাল বুঝি বাজায় বাঁশি। লাঙল কাঁধে ক্লান্ত চাষি ফিরছে ঘরে দিনের শেষে, গির্জা ঘরের ঘণ্টার ধ্বনি সাঁঝের বায়ে যাচ্ছে মিশে। আধার হলো, গ্রামের ঘরে নামবে এবার নীরবতা, সালকি মেরি তলায় বসে আমরা শুধু কইব কথা। হেদিয়ে মাথা তোমার কাঁধে, ধরে তোমার কোমল পানি, প্রহর ভরে শুনব শুধু তোমার মুখের প্রেমের বাণী। রাত্রি যখন গভীর হবে, ঘুমের কোলে পড়ব ঢুলে, এমন রাত কি এই জীবনে আসবে প্রিয়া, এবার গেলে we have the imageries we have that the গোষ্ঠগৃহ, then লাঙল কাঁধে ক্লান্ত চাষী ফিরছে ঘরে দিনের শেষে. These pictures actually we just forget the Romania. This can be a picture of any rural, any village of Bengal, isn't it? So if you just forget that it is a translation, you can say it is an original Bengali poem describing the village of Bengal. So it's so natural. Translation.
Yeah, it's a story.
Yes, that is the novel story. That was very interesting when you shared it with us.
Yeah, it's one with the
না ওটা ওটা স্ট্যান্ড বাইতে চলে গেছে তো এটা
ওটা ওই ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ডটা দিয়ে দিলাম তাহলে ওটা
হ্যাঁ এই চলে আসছে
গির্জা ছিল মন্দিরের জায়গায় গির্জা ছিল
হ্যাঁ শুধু মন্দিরের জায়গায় share that cowbell story that is
time to time we come in Kolkata in holidays, and one time she read one poem from her translation, and but didn't know the name of the poet, and one critic said, "Oh look, that is a Bengali poet from 19th century." And Didi told the story, so it's a Minuscu's poem, but the critic didn't want to decode it. But at the end, he said, "Okay, but I'm not very happy because the translator was very involved in modify a lot, because look, only we, the Bengali, we have the who go to their home." And Didi said, the reply was, "You, my Romanian readers, you are my, you know very well that I didn't make the sound this the bells, Eminescu bells. So there are similar motifs in the Romanian and Bengali poetry. You didn't know if it's Romanian or Bengali
influence. Yeah. And we can should we read that Kamadano or we can read?
Carry on, yeah. We can or now or Mamsi Gogo and yeah.
We can come to
Yeah.
So that is the last poem, one from Eminescu and the other from Tagore. We will first listen to Eminescu's poem, and then we will listen to Tagore. Okay, so just to see how the two poems are. So, can we listen to Eminescu? This is the final poem. And interestingly, Eminescu didn't write about about the influence he had from Indian philosophy, but his poems, all his poems speak of Indian philosophies. They're very much integrated in his poems, but he never spoke on that. He never wrote on that in his essays. In his I didn't read Eminescu, but I got it from other articles.
Yeah, Eminescu didn't wrote even a word about India, but at the end of her doctoral thesis, Didi wrote, Mihai Eminescu is the only European poet who made India immortal in his country. And Mai am un singur dor, this poem is Didi's favorite poem. Mai am un singur dor. Mai am un singur dor. În liniștea serii, să mă lăsați să mor la marginea mării, să-mi fie somnul lin și codrul aproape, pe întinsele ape să am un cer senin. Nu trebuie flamuri, nu voi să fiu bogat, ci împletiți un pat din tinere ramuri. Și nimeni în urma mea nu-mi plângă la creșteri, doar toamna glas să dea frunzișului veșteri. Pe când cu zgomot cad izvoarele într-una, Alunece luna prin vârfuri lungi de brad, pătrunză talanga al sării rece vânt, deasupra înteiul sfânt să-și scuture creanga.
আছে শুধু একটি তিয়াসা, রজনীর নিঃশব্দ তিমিরে আমারে মরিতে দিও একা, জনহীন সমুদ্রের তীরে। সবাধার মোর তরে নহে, পট্টবস্ত্রে নাহি প্রয়োজন, বসন্তে তরুর শাখা দিয়ে রচিও আমার আচ্ছাদন। সায়ান্নের ধীর গতি চাঁদ ভেসে যাবে ঝাউবন শিরে, ধেনুদের ঘণ্টাধ্বনি জবে মিশাইবে শীতল সমীরে। তখনই পর্বত কাত্রে বুঝি নির্ঝরিণী উঠিবে আকুলি, নির্জন সমাধি পরে মম ঝরিবে তেইর পাতাগুলি। পুঞ্জীভূত স্মৃতির হিমানি মৃত্যুর শূন্যতা দিবে ভরি, আবার উঠিবে সন্ধ্যা তারা কত না রাতের ব্যথা সরি। আমার মরণে ব্যথা ভরে ফেলো না কো কেহ সৃজন, বনান্তের বহিবে বিলাপ হেমন্তের শুষ্ক পত্রদল। উচ্ছ্বসে উঠিবে দীর্ঘশ্বাস অশান্ত সমুদ্র সমীরণে, অপার স্তব্ধতা মাঝে যবে মিশে যাব মৃত্তিকার সনে। এবারে রবীন্দ্রনাথের কবিতা, Tagore's poems, the first in Romanian translation, then the original work. Just few lines. That poem is a longer one, so we will read few. A portion has been translated in Romanian, and from the original work we will have few lines.
What is very what is very strange or not, it's the fact that when I made some events about the Didier Tagore, and that it's happened in a garden or a museum garden, I started with this little poem, and I saw on Srabanti's script that she started our poetry poem with the same one, but we didn't talk about. That means maybe sometimes, like the poet who wrote the same idea about the same idea, we were connected on the same
Actually,
idea.
yes. The next poem which we will read now, that is very similar to Eminescu's poem, and you can find the similarity when we read the poem. And tomorrow we have an event. We will read some poems from Eminescu and Tagore, mostly from Eminescu and Tagore, and just by comparing their literary works, and there I started the script with this poem, the poem which we will now recite. Then when I sent the script to Carmen said, "Oh, I was just fixed with that script. I always start with this poem." And so now we will start, but we didn't discuss. I didn't know that Carmen starts her program with that poem. But I also started with that poem and put Eminescu's poem afterwards because those are very similar. So we will end with that poem. We have read the Eminescu's work, the Eminescu's poem, and we will now read Tagore's poem.
Dacă vreți să vă aduceți aminte de mine, atunci când nu voi mai fi pe pământ, nu faceți nicio comemorare, nu țineți nicio ședință. Veniți doar în pădure și ascultați trilul păsărilor.
So I will read few lines from that poem. That is a very common poem. যখন রব না আমি মর্ত কায়ায়, তখন সরিতে যদি হয় মন, তবে তুমি এসো হেথা নিভৃত ছায়ায়, যেথাই চৈত্রের শালবন। শেষে চলে যাচ্ছি। বাসা যার ছিল ঢাকা জনতার পারে, ভাষা হারাদের সাথে মিল যার, যে আমি চাইনি কারে ঋণী করিবারে, রাখিয়া যে যায় নাই ঋণভার। সে আমারে কে চিনেছ মর্ত কায়ায়, কখনো সরিতে যদি হয় মন, ডেকো না সভা, এসো এ ছায়ায়, যেথায় চৈত্রের শালবন। কোথাও কি মিলে যায় না এই কথাগুলো? সবাধার মর্তরে নহে, পট্টবস্ত্রে নাহি প্রয়োজন, বসন্তে তরুর শাখা দিয়ে রচিও আমার আচ্ছাদন। ডেকো না সভা, এসো এ ছায়ায়, যেথায় চৈত্রের শালবন। So we end with these pieces, and thank you all once again.
I wish you all, I wish you to thank you to all. Thank you.